Good morning to everyone, and we apologize for the delay in the session because we had some technical challenges with our link. We are hoping to resolve it going forward. You are once again welcome to FOASPS webinar series. Today we'll be treating strategic planning of association development, and Mr. Kofi Kumoji will be the one who will take us through, the Primary Secretary for FOASPS. Please, in the chat box, you enter your details in the chat box for records purposes. With much to say, I'll hand over to Mr. Kofi to take us. Thank you. Mr. Kofi, over.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. Good morning, my dear colleagues, and sorry again for the challenge we are experiencing this morning. As Samuel said, we had some challenges with the payment system that Zoom were not able to coordinate with my credit card. So for transparency reason, I need to tell you what really happened. So that is why we are using this link, but we are hoping that now that I have solved the problem, by next week, we will have the possibility to return to the webinar link. In the meantime, I can imagine that we are missing some of our colleagues this morning due to this technical problem. But as we are going to post the recording of the session, we hope that we can catch up so that we will continue harmoniously. So today we are going to talk about strategic planning of the association's development. To introduce this session, I want to tell one story quickly. I was listening to a minister in one of our countries in West Africa. He's no more a minister, he's a former minister. And he was criticizing the government, and he said that in the government, when he joined the government, he realized that there is no space where people think about the future. And he said that for most of his colleagues, the future is next week. So, and he was complaining about that because to him and to me probably, you cannot plan the development of a country if you are thinking ahead only for next week. You know, it is not prospective at all. Another story is like if you are going to your office in the morning and you are stopped by the police at a certain point, and instead of the police asking you about your driving license and the car IDs, etc., instead there is somebody who comes to you and says, we are making a survey. So we want to know when you go to your office this morning, what are the work that you are going to carry out? We realize that, I don't know for you in this session, but with many people, like more than 80%, they were just surprised by the question, and they said, we don't know. I'm going to the office and I'll be expecting my supervisor to give me work to do. Okay, so those two stories to just say that in our country federation, in our associations, if we are not thinking about the development of that association, that we are likely to be engaged in routine activities, and that will not allow the association to grow. Strategic planning of the association is key if you want to think development. So the objective of this session is that we are expecting by the end of the session that we will all acquire the key tools to clarify the vision and mission of our associations, to analyze the general context of our work. We are not on an island. Our country federation are not on an island. We are in a country, we are in a region, we are in the world. So it is important for us to know, to analyze from time to time what is the general context of our work. And this is something that we are going to talk about. Then we also expect to recognize our strengths and weaknesses, as well as opportunities and threats or challenges that are there that can have some impact on our work. We'll expect to identify and retain the strategic priorities of the development of our association. So when we are thinking strategically, we may think of doing various things, but how do we select? How do we identify the most important that we need to plan in our strategic plan? Okay, and then the last objective will be to also be able to put a budget, to put the financial figures to the strategic plan that we have put in place, and also think about how we are going to mobilize the resources, how we are going to mobilize partnership, a technical or financial partnership around the strategic plan that we have designed. Of course, those objectives lead us to structure the session in 6 chapters. The first one will be the clarification of the vision and mission. The second will be the analysis of the general context, as I said. Then we will go through the SWOT analysis. And the fourth chapter will talk about prioritization of the association's strategic development axis, strategic development pillars. And chapter 5 will talk about the logical framework. That is the format that we are going to give to our strategic plan. When we agree on what we want to do, we need to put it in a format that will be a logical structure, a logical framework. And then, of course, strategic plan and budgeting will be our last chapter for this session. So I said the first chapter is about clarification of the association vision and mission. In most of our associations, constitutions, we have the vision, we have the mission. If we don't, then maybe this is something we need to think about and see how we can get a vision statement, a mission statement that will be there somewhere. Even if they are not in the Constitution, they should be somewhere because they are part of the identity of our association. For example, if I take FOASPS, our vision is that our health systems in Africa, West Africa, cannot prosper without the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. This is the vision. We need that public-private dialogue or public-private partnership, you name it as you want. But this interaction between the public and the private are essential for the development of our health system in West Africa. That is FOAP's vision. Then when the vision is well formulated through what we usually call a vision statement, okay, when it is clear, then we need to talk about the mission. What is the contribution of your association in the attainment of the vision that you have defined? So the vision can be something in the long term, maybe 20 years, 50 years. The vision can be very long term. The vision sets the tune, but then when we are talking about the mission, then we are talking about what you or your association is going to do to contribute to the attainment of that vision. Ultimately, when we are talking about public-private dialogue, we know that one single person or one single organization cannot achieve that, because the minimum is that we have the public and we are the private sector federation. So our contribution should be understood. But probably the public sector as well will be contributing. Probably our partners, the development partners, the technical and financial partners will also be playing some other roles. And maybe the general public, the stakeholders, our constituencies, the people who are benefiting of the health system or the health policies in our region also will have some role to play. So when we are talking about our mission, the association mission, we just want to look at what will be our contribution to the achievement of the vision that is being stated. Then, so the mission can be, let me say, a shorter term. It can be a mid-term mission. For example, when you look at FOASPS mission, you realize that we add something that is critical. That is the achievement of universal health coverage. So you see that FOASPS mission is to strengthen the collaboration between public and private sector to achieve universal health coverage. So the question is, if we are able to do that in maybe the next 10 years, when in all our countries, universal health coverage become a reality, will our mission still remain the same? Or are we going to determine, I will call it some other challenges that will come now and change the formulation, the declaration of our mission? So we have the mission statement that will be in the short term, and that can be changed frequently, while the vision may not change as frequently as the mission will do. Then after the mission, and especially when we are talking about the strategic planning, then we will be talking about the purpose of the association. What is the purpose of the association? To take, again, the example of FOASPS, you will see in our documents that FOASPS want to be the unique voice of the private sector of health in West Africa to interact with the public sector. So you realize that this is a short-term aim, 5 years, 10 years. If in 10 years we are in total agreement, total synergy with the public sector, we are representing the private sector, our voice is well heard, maybe then our purpose will change as well. Okay? But you realize that when we are talking today about strategic planning for FOASPS, that aspect of making sure that our voice is heard, we are representing the private sector, talking, interacting in dialogue with the public sector, you realize that that is the purpose that is going to guide our strategic planning. Then you break down your purpose into strategic objectives. Okay, so that you put small, for instance, if you are saying that the purpose is to be the unique voice of the private sector, then what are the objectives? One objective may be to be participating in fora where decisions are made in regard to the health system. One may be we as an organization organizing those forums. One may be promoting a communication tool like the web radio, the web TV, etc. So you see, we have various objectives that are contributing to the attainment of the purpose. So it is like breaking down your whole into bricks, small, small bricks. Now, when all those are clear, vision and mission, purpose and objectives are clear, then one important step in strategic planning will be the analysis of the general context of your association. How do we do that? As we are in a webinar, we are not going to carry out this exercise. I'm just going to explain. It is one exercise. We can have many other exercises, brainstorming, etc., etc. But the idea here is that for everybody to contribute, you will need to organize a meeting and sit down together and then share ideas. So the first thing we usually do is that instead of starting talking, we want people to think individually and put on a board their ideas in response to the question, what are the events, what are the situations that are happening in our external world that we may not have control over, but that we know may have some impact on our work. So when you are doing this exercise, scanning your environment, you can talk about things that are happening in your immediate neighboring country. Let me call it neighboring country, like um, the Sahelian dynamic that is ongoing now will be one. I usually recall when there's been this election in America, maybe 1 year ago, when we knew that yes, America is going to have an election, and Donald Trump were talking about what he would do when he will become president, etc., etc. Nobody in force would think that that election may have an impact on us. And I'm sure today, when we are talking about even okay, let me say today, when we are talking about the Ukraine war, we don't necessarily see what may be the impact of those events that are happening. So we can take immediate events and situations, but we can go far away because today we know that we are on a global planet and nothing that is happening somewhere will not be totally unconsidered in terms of impact or in terms of influencing the movement of your country or of your association. Okay, so scanning the environment can go beyond the immediate arena under which you are operating and even cover the whole world. Then when everybody contributes like that, you can now take every element and start thinking what may be the impact of this, what may be the impact of that. Positive, negative, it can be both. You analyze all those situations that have been posted on the board. Maybe sometime we organize in group. And then recommendation may come in regard to the impact that you suspect that can happen. You can start making recommendations as to how we can have control over the negative impact that may happen, or how we can take advantage of the opportunities that may be created by those events that we have identified before. So all these can be done through group works, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, we have a first set of information that will be needed to build the strategic plan. Um, Of course, when you are facilitating such a session, you can also contribute, because sometimes the participant in this process may not have the experience or may not have the expertise to see the whole picture. So it can be your responsibility to draw their attention to few things that they did not see, they did not sense. Okay, so if you can ask questions, you can contribute just to to tease their reflection, etc., etc. Then after the analysis of the context, scanning the context, another important step is the SWOT analysis.
Go. Make I give you money. Do you have cash? I have cash.
Ijeoma,
Where is
your microphone is on. Okay, so SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis, I hope we all know what it means: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. We know that there is some new school of thought that today are trying to say that we should not use the term threats. They prefer to use challenges. So if you prefer challenges, then your SWOT will become SWOC. Okay? It is just a way of saying that threat sounds negative. So they want to see something more positive. That is why they prefer challenges. But still, there is no consensus on that. So sometimes people are still using threat and some are using challenges. So it is important to go through and identify the various, let me say the SWOT. So maybe for those who are not comfortable with this small figure here shows how we should think when we are talking about SWOT. You see, this column is about the positive factors, the positive events, the positive element, etc. And the second column is about the negative. But the first line look at the internal factors, meaning there are things that we can have control over. As an association, as an organization, we can have control over. Maybe we decide, or we can have a decision on it, immediate decision on it. But the second line, look at the external. So when you combine the two, external meaning that we don't have any control over, it is decided by other people, other instances, other organizations. So when you look at that, you realize that the strengths are the positive, the internal positive. The weaknesses are the internal negative factors. And the opportunities are the external positive, and the threats are the external negative. The challenge we usually have when we are identifying SWOT are that sometimes we make confusion between the strengths and the opportunities. We make confusion between the weaknesses and the threats. So we are going to look at an example. For example, we try to look at an online training program. Okay? If like your organization is basically an online training program or online training institution, what may be your strengths? So positive, internal, positive. Here we see personalized learning experience tailored to individual student needs. So being an online program, we can have very personalized learning experience that will be tailored to student participants. We can have flexible scheduling for participants who are participating, or even for the the teachers, the lecturers, etc., we can have flexible scheduling to accommodate students and parents' busy schedule. For instance, when we take executive MBAs in most of our universities today, some of the courses are delivered at night. Some of the courses are delivered over the weekend, okay? Because most of or some of the participants are people who are going to work daytime and can participate only overnight or over the weekend. Okay, so you can accommodate to student constraints. We can have skilled tutors with expertise. We can call on very experienced experts to deliver the courses because in online setting, people don't need to move. People can remain in their house, in their office, and provide the class that they are supposed to provide. So I don't want to go through all these, but I'm just trying to take few to show how or what we mean by strength. When we come to opportunities, external positive. We have an example here, the growing demand for online tutoring services. We know that more and more people are understanding the online studies, the online courses, the online classes, and there are more and more that are demanding for those systems. There is an increasing emphasis on the STEAM education that opens up for opportunity for specialized tutoring in science, in mathematics, technology, engineering, etc., etc. Any course that does not necessarily need, let me say, practical hand manipulation things can be delivered online. And moreover, even for those aspects of the trainings that need manipulation, we also have today a lot of electronic tools. You can have simulators, you can have a lot of things that can help to progress, etc., etc. Or you go to the weaknesses, the internal negative factors. We can mention the dependence on academic cycle. Okay, yes, we are saying that we can be flexible, fine. We can accommodate the time of the learners, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we need to have a clear cycle when you start your course one day and you finish one day. If you want to be in the academic system and enjoy, I will call it, all the mechanisms that glorify your learning effort, for instance, the graduation ceremony. If you are in a system where you are free to take your course anytime and finish anytime, you may not have that possibility to be part of a graduation ceremony unless you finish maybe in June and you'll be waiting till September when other people are ready before maybe the school can organize the graduation together for you. So some of those aspects of the academic cycle can be a weakness for our online program. Competition from online tutoring platforms. Of course, the competition is easier to organize. In the past, universities have built their credibility, etc., on the fact that they have a campus, they have some past students, etc., that create this kind of credibility. Now, we have a lot of online training programs, online training institutions that are emerging. Some are good, some are not good. So going to take an online course become another challenge for the student because you have to make sure that you are not taking something that is useless. Okay, and that in the long run, that school or that online institution will be able to build the credibility that will positively affect your degree, for example. Okay, so it can be a weakness for online training institution. In regard to the threats, the external negative factors, the economic downturn may lead parents to prioritize other spending over supplemental education services. That threat, in my opinion, may be as valid as for even the in-presence courses, but we know that it can be more on the online programs. Rapid advancement in educational technology. Yeah, of course. Like I was saying, there are a lot of new topics, new ideas that are emerging now, new tools as well that are emerging now. And when you are in this kind of online training institution, it will be a challenge for you to be able to adapt, to adjust, to make sure that your program are still relevant, etc., etc. Okay, so it can be a threat. So this just to give you an example of how do we mean by SWOT and how we proceed to identify the various elements, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats or challenges, like I said. Now, when you finish to identify those elements, there is another major step that is to analyze to see how you can take let me say the best advantage of your strengths, how you can reinforce, how you can strengthen what is already a strength. Okay? Then when we are looking at the weaknesses, you will be discussing how you can reduce, you can eliminate, or you can manage those weaknesses so that their impact does not become a disaster for your system. In the same time, you are also looking at the opportunities in terms of how can we maximize the impact or the income of those opportunities. Is there something that you can do to take advantage of those opportunities? And in regard to the threats as well, how can we anticipate? How can we alleviate? How can we make sure that if what we suspect happen, we will not be affected too much? Okay? So this is something that is also important. And the end of this second step, the SWOT analysis, is going to be a set of recommendations, and that will lead to some action that we will put in place later. So when you finish to identify all these, you realize that sometimes, especially when you are doing this exercise in a consultative way, in a workshop, in a meeting where all the stakeholders are contributing, you realize that you can have a set of recommendations, a set of proposals, a set of actions. And sometimes even there are confusion between what is a recommendation, what is an objective to achieve, what are the concrete actions. You may have some confusion in the room about all those aspects. And that is where facilitators should be alert enough to help the group to disaggregate, to identify, maybe to cluster some of the ideas first, and make sure that we start defining the specific pillars under which we want to structure our strategic plan. So when you are at that level, you have to decide if you've been able to streamline, to synthesize all the ideas, or if you need to prioritize. Let me say that the experts are saying today that when you are designing a strategic plan, you should not have more than, let me say, 3 or 4 pillars. So you realize that 3 or 4 pillars, sometimes people come out with, through this exercise, even be 20 big recommendations. So the question here is, are they all recommendations that needs to be there? Can we make some kind of merging some of them to have one single pillar sometimes? Or do we need to eliminate some? Because sometimes also when you are able to perform on some recommendation, you realize that other recommendations are already addressed. So you don't need to waste your time working on 20 recommendations. You can think and select maybe 5 or 4 recommendations so that you are sure when you are able to achieve the necessary actions there, then the other recommendation will also be addressed. So it is a very, I would say, challenging exercise, but this is exactly where you, as the planner, the strategic planner, you are expected to really be anticipating, looking to the future, and being in a prospective manner how you can put together this. So it is a very important phase of the strategic planning. Identify the priority axis or pillars under which you want to operate. Again, 2, 3, 4 maximum pillars will be enough. It happened in some instances where we went beyond 4, and we can give examples, but you will realize that those examples are really, for instance, when you take the UN strategic objective, the Millennium Declaration, you realize that they had something like 10 or 12 strategic objectives. Okay, but here we are talking about the global development. We are talking about something that concerns 8 billions of human beings on the planet. So, well, we can understand why in those circumstances we can have 10, 12, 15 strategic objectives. But as for an organization, please don't go beyond 2 or 3. Now, when we have all those things, you realize that we have various documents that are there, flip chart or board, etc., where we have all those informations. So now we need to put them in a concrete format that will become our strategic plan. Of course, the strategic plan will be a kind of report of all the steps that you have carried out. You have to mention the vision, the mission, the objective, the purpose, etc. But also you need to have a small explanation about the SWOT analysis that has been done, even if you don't go into details. You have to show some of them. You have to talk about the pillars, etc. But these can be like, let me say 2, 3, 4 pages. And so this is the narrative part of your strategic plan. Then in addition to the narrative part of the strategic plan, we now have the logical framework. And here we are showing an example of logical framework where you realize that in the pink, there is a reminder of the association vision, there is a reminder of the mission, there is a reminder of the goal, okay? We are trying to explain, what do we mean by goal? We are saying the big why. Why do we want to do this? So this is going to be the big why. Then the objectives are going to be the small whys. Okay, I give some examples before, you remember? I give some examples. So now, on the right side, we have in the yellow box the assumptions and major risk. You remember when we make the SWOT analysis, we analyze some opportunities and threats. So if you identify some big opportunities and threats that are likely to affect the implementation of your strategic plan, you can mention them under the yellow box. Okay? So assumption are, let me say, the factors that for you will guarantee the success of your strategic plan implementation. Risks are factors that may reduce your capacity to be successful. So it is important to talk about both. So that during implementation, the people who are in charge of the implementation realize that some of the assumptions that were in place, or that were identified, are not in place, they will understand that the risk of not achieving totally the goal will be there. Okay, for example, we said that one of our objectives for FOASPS is to be participating in events where decisions are made in regard to the health system in our region. Okay, the assumption may be that we have the means as FOASPS, financial means, to be there. Or alternatively, we have some partners who are able to support us to be there. If we don't have neither one or the other, then we may not be able to achieve that assumption. So how are we going to be there to get our voice to be heard? Okay, so those are the situations. In some countries, frequent change of government can be a risk for the achievement of your target objectives. If you are negotiating with ministers of health and the ministers are changing every day, it means that every day you have to get appointment and go back to the minister, explain who you are, what you want to do, etc., etc. So the political situation in a country can be a risk that you can identify in that box. Of course, the green box under the yellow will talk about some key indicators. What will be the key indicators that will show that you have been able to successfully implement your strategic plan. Okay? Then under this, we have as many boxes as the number of axes or pillars that we have prioritized. So strategic axis 1 will be formulated in the blue line over there. Then we have the column activities, objectives. So any activity that you identify, you have to explain what is the objective or what are the objectives that that particular activity is aiming at. How to be the output and the product and who will be responsible. Okay, so one column is output and product, achievement of indicators, who will be the responsible person within your organization, who will be responsible. It can be the person, it can be a department. It depends on how you are structured. And are there other actors that may be contributing? That is where we have the column about other actors. Then the period or the deadline, and then the budget. Okay, so for every axis, you have that, and you have various lines, various activities, and everything goes in synergy. So this is how we put in place the strategy, the logical framework. Now we also say that you don't finish your strategic plan and it is beautiful and you are there. You need to think about money now. How are we going to implement that strategic plan? So it is extremely important to think about the financial implication. So this particular step required a strong collaboration between the actors, the people who design the the strategic plan, the people who are going to implement, okay, and also the finance people. Now, the finance people know how to figure out the amount of money that is needed for some activities, but they need the collaboration with the designers of the strategic plan. For example, if in your strategic plan, you have workshops and you want the finance people to tell you how much provision should be made and in terms of budget, the finance people will ask you, this is your workshop. How many days? How many participants? Is it going to be done in your local, where the office is? Are you going to rent a hotel, a room, a venue somewhere, etc., etc.? So therefore, it is important when you are planning the strategic, designing the strategic plan, and you don't have the finance people with you, because sometimes they don't have our time, okay, these finance people. So what you will be doing in the column about the budget for you as the planners will be to give the necessary information that will help the finance people to be able to calculate, to identify the amount of money that they need to put there. So that work will also be part of your work, giving the necessary information to inform the finance people. And of course, when it comes to implementing, we are not going to talk about implementing today because we are just at the planning, the strategic planning phase. So, but when you will be implementing, it will be important for you to be having an eye on all the picture from time to time, going to read back the vision, the mission, etc., so that you know if you are really, really in the right track. In conclusion, strategic planning is a major tool for ensuring the development of an organization in a context of ruthless competition. I hope that we will all agree that even in the civil society organizations arena, the competition is rude. Okay? Information warfare. Yeah, it is like a war. Sharing information or keeping your information strategically is something very, very important. Of course, we are in a situation where people are asking, do you need to have a website so that you can share information, etc.? The question here is, do we share all the informations on our website, or do we retain some of those information because we believe they are strategic and they cannot be shared with any other person? It is important for you to develop that sense of economic intelligence. Okay, economic intelligence is critical in that sense. Associations are no exceptions to this reality of competition and must fight to have a place under the sun. We are experiencing it now. Now with the USAID stop work, we realize how hard it is for us to be competing with other associations as FOASPS, but as country federation as well, to be able to attract resources to implement our target activities, our target strategic plan. So today, strategic planning has made a great qualitative leap to join foresight, to go beyond short-term planning and be part of the long-term and in geopolitics and geoeconomics. This last sentence, I'm leaving it for your reflection. We talk about information warfare. We talk about ruthless competition. We are talking about economic intelligence. Therefore, those are terms that critically lead us to the more general geopolitics and geoeconomics, not only in our region, but at the global arena. So it is important for us to have that capacity to see the long term, not just to stop at the short term or at the midterm. So, dear colleagues, I thank you very much for your time and for listening to this. If there are any question or any comment, I think, Samuel, we can take the questions now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kofi Kumaji, for your insightful message. Please, if you have any question or any comment, you can write it in the chat box. At the same time, you can signal by raising up your hand so that maybe we can call you. So this is the time for questions, please. Please, this is the time for questions. So if you have questions, you can signal by raising up your hand, or you put it in the chat box so that Mr. Kofi can attend to it. Any comment too is also welcome. We have a question from Jenny, who is asking of whether they'll get a certificate after the classes, the program. Mr. Kofi?
Yeah, Samuel, you can respond to that. No, you can respond.
Yes, please. Yeah, you'll be getting certificate, but those who attend more than 80, who attend from 80% of the classes, those are the ones who get certificate. I hope, Jenny, you get me, and the rest too. Okay. If we don't have any question, I thank you all for participating, and we thank you for having the patience even when we're having the technical challenges. I'll give to Mr. Kofi to give his final remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. No, I will just also thank our colleagues who made the time to be with us this morning, though we had that challenge, and we will discuss with colleagues whether we need to reschedule this session due to the situation that we experience. But this is something that I cannot say anything about now. We need to discuss it within the permanent secretariat and decide how we are going to move on that. So thank you again and have a great day ahead.